Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good
We will
morning.
be starting shortly. Just give everyone another minute to get on. Okay, I'm going to mute everybody and then we will get started. 1 second. Okay, chapter 19. Good morning, everybody. We are in the middle of discussing a new topic that the Alter Rebbe has introduced in Tanya, which is the type of love which a person can awaken. He has this love already, but he can awaken it to serve Hashem. And it is neither an intellectually produced love nor a tavuna. So intellectually produced love means that you studied something, you reflected on the greatness of Hashem, and as a result, you produced emotions of love and fear of Hashem, which then serve as wings for your mitzvahs. After that, the Alter Rebbe explained how if you're not able to do that, whether the reason is because of your capacity of understanding or maybe the root of your neshama, you are able to still serve Hashem with love and fear by using an intellectual kind of a love. So it's an intellectual emotion, which is called a tavuna, and that serves as the wings of the mitzvah. But in this case, this topic that was started last week, the Alter Rebbe is discussing the type of love which neither is intellectually produced or is a conviction in the recesses of the hearts. This love that is hidden is it's a spiritual gene that every single one of us has inherited through our patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It is usually hidden, and that's why we're learning how to awaken it. And we're learning about the nature of this love. And its source is the sphira or attribute of chachma, wisdom, which is above logic or reason or rational thought. So when we say that it's above logic, one might have a question, doesn't chachma belong to the intellectual attributes? Well, it does, but it is the highest one, and it is the potential. In other words, it is the concept. It is above logic. Bina actually then involves our intellectual faculties when we actually start understanding and reflecting and chewing it over. So this chapter is now going to discuss the nature of this love and why it is normally hidden. Because if we all have this love, then we should be able to access it. It shouldn't be hidden, right? And we did start saying last chapter just a little bit about how this love at the level of Chachma is very connected to faith, which is above all logical thought. You cannot explain faith according to reason. So in order to explain this, this hidden love, the Alter Rebbe brings the mashal that is used very often to explain the nature of the soul, the nature of the neshama, which is that the soul is compared to a candle. So Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the candle of Hashem is the soul of man. So a neshama is really compared to the flame of this candle. And this fire is always reaching upwards by its very nature. That's the nature of the flame. That's the nature of fire. Now, it's very interesting because every single element that is in this world is influenced by gravity, except for fire. Fire always reaches upwards. Even if you're going to turn a candle upside down, the fire is still going to reach upwards and not be affected by gravitational forces. All elements in this world seek to preserve their own existence except for fire. So the fact that everything moves downwards, it's for self-preservation. They want to remain in this world, right? Animals, people, plants, we all want to remain rooted in this world. Fire's nature is not like this. Fire's nature is to tear itself away from the wick, to attach itself to its source, which, by the way, Tanya tells us is under the orbit of the moon. That is the source for fire. But fire is always striving to go upwards. But even though it's the nature of fire to do this, it's the nature of fire, even though ultimately it will be extinguished. And ultimately it will lose its identity within its source. In other words, it's like the rays of the sun, right? The rays of the sun, each ray has an identity, but within its source, in the sun, you can't distinguish each ray separately, right? They lose their identity. The same thing with fire. Fire going upwards to its source and uniting with its source, it's going to be extinguished and it's going to lose its identity. And nonetheless, it still strives to unite itself with its source. So what actually is this quality of wanting to unite with the source, its source? This is the quality of Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. When a neshama, which is always wanting to strive upwards towards its source, right? But we know that we try to ground the neshama in this world because the neshama has to do mitzvahs in this world. The neshama would not fulfill its purpose if it were to unite with its source. But since it is always striving to unite with its source, it has this quality that can sometimes come to practical application, which is actually being extinguished, which means that the person dies with Mesiras Nefesh. He sacrifices his soul. But when a neshama sacrifices itself for godliness, it's not a logical decision. It's its nature. You see, by non-Jews, if you were to look at current events even, right? Non-Jews may have values which cause them to sacrifice their lives, right? To be martyrs, etc., but it's logically thought out. In other words, they have logically come to the conclusion that it's a good idea to sacrifice their lives for this cause. The neshama of a Jew on the level of Mesiras Nefesh, it's not a logical decision. It's nature, it's the neshama's nature that he cannot separate himself from Hashem. And in other words, he cannot deny Hashem's existence. It's not a logical decision that godliness is better than life. Otherwise, it would not be considered true Mesiras Nefesh, right? It's just in the neshama's nature to want to unite with Hashem, to want to leave the body. The neshama is always wanting to leave the body and unite with Hashem and cleave to its source, even though if it does so, it will become nothing and lose its identity here on earth. Right? Like the soul doesn't become a better soul by leaving the body. It's just that it's nature. It's the nature of a soul. It's not like this logical, reasonable, thought out decision, if I leave the body, I'll become a better soul or I'll be serving a better purpose. No, it is simply the nature of the soul which defies logic. It is above the level of chachma, of seichel, intellect, and therefore comes from the level of chachma and above. When a Jew arouses and produces love and fear of Hashem through his intellect, or even has a tevuna, which is a strong conviction and intellectual emotion, that comes from a lower level. That comes from the level of bina, where intellect begins. And therefore, a mitzvah that is done with Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, is actually a higher level than love and fear of Hashem, because it's simply above logic, just tapping into the nature of the soul. So really, it's an involuntary devotion to Hashem because of the godliness present in the neshama. It's the nature of the neshama. And this nature, this hidden love on this level, motivates a person to do a mitzvah without having to contemplate a decision. That's the beauty of it. Because Chachma is the point of contact between a Jew and Hashem. It's like the bridge to the will of Hashem, right? Chachma sees godliness. Chachma sees Hashem, and that's what causes faith. On that level of our neshama, that's where we see Hashem. That's why we have faith on that level. That's where emunah comes from, and is why people can have faith without understanding, because it's above understanding. So here's the question. Why is this level of love and faith normally hidden? We don't usually feel it, right? Because if we would feel it constantly, we would never sin, because it would be so clear to us that we are united with Hashem and we love Hashem. It just would be clear. But it's specifically called a hidden love. That's the nature of this love. So why is it hidden? So we know there's a tzaddik, a Benoni, and a Russia, right? A Russia has the potential to sin, and he does sin. When a Russia is not being challenged about his faith to Hashem, in Hashem, right? The godly soul is actually exiled within the animal soul of this Russia. It is in Golus. It is imprisoned, right? Which is the whole concept of tshuva, because tshuva redeems, liberates the godly soul from the exile of the animal soul. In a Russia, the godly soul is usually exiled within his animal soul. The Russia is controlled by his animal soul in the left side of the heart, we know, right? In the Benoni, the soul has no power, but it does still exist. It doesn't have any power over the body, but it is there. So that is actually what we mean by the expression Shchinta begalusa. The Shechina is in Golus. The Shechina is exiled. The Shechina is the part of Hashem that is present in the soul. The neshama, this part of Hashem which is present in the soul, is exiled within its own body. And therefore, it cannot influence him not to sin. It's in prison. Its hands are tied. It can't do anything. That's what happens in the state of a Russia, right? So not serving Hashem on the level. So one second. Now let's go back to a person who does a mitzvah, but he's a Russia. Sometimes he sins, sometimes he does a mitzvah, right? He's a potential Benoni. He's not doing the mitzvahs on the level of self-sacrifice, which is fine. We should all do mitzvahs, whether or not they're on the level of Mesiras Nefesh or not. But not serving Hashem on the level of Mesiras Nefesh, even if one does a mitzvah, can actually be the opposite of altruism. Because love is a selfish emotion. It feels good to love somebody. Conventional love, there's a reason why you love somebody, right? There's a reason why you want to get closer to someone. So even if we produce love and fear from our intellect, it's still limited. It's still not 3,000% altruistic. It can be the reality sometimes of the animal soul seeking self-preservation, its own survival through godliness, through doing a mitzvah, but it's for its own benefit. But it's not the level of Mesiras Nefesh, right? But here we have our godly soul who wants to cleave to Hashem, but this hidden love on this level of having true Mesiras Nefesh is concealed by a thick shell, a thick klipa, which causes a person to sin, which causes a person to imprison his godly soul. And that is why a person sins, because when a person sins, the Tanya tells us, the person is in a state of temporary insanity because he's forgetting the truth. He's forgetting his real identity. He's forgetting his love for Hashem, this hidden love. He's forgetting that level of soul truth that wants to unite with Hashem on the level of leaving his body. So when a Jew sins, it is because a ruach shtus, a spirit of insanity or folly, has entered into him. He's going against his very nature. A person is actually turning against himself by sinning. But a hidden love doesn't mean dead, does not mean a dead love. It's hidden, but we can awaken it. We can awaken it, even though the default setting is that it's hidden. The default setting is that it's imprisoned within the animal soul. It can be awakened because it's not dead, it's dormant. At the level of Chachma, Klipa has no effect. The animal soul has no effect. Much as when we're asleep, we don't use our faculties. They're not dead, they're just not being used, right? But when Chachma is awakened on that level of hidden love, when Chachma is awakened, all behavior changes to the point that a person is even willing to give up his life. In other words, it wakes up and changes the person's behavior. With the power of Hashem invested in it, Hashem helps. It doesn't come from the person, it comes from Hashem. And that's why at this level, the person almost doesn't have a choice. He simply is in touch with his nature via godliness, and he has self-sacrifice and does the mitzvahs, or is willing to die for the sake of a mitzvah. And so therefore, the heart of the Nefesh Elokis is in exile, but the brain is not, and we can awaken this brain function by reflecting on this. Now, it's interesting because the Mesiras Nefesh on the level of Chachma is so strong that firstly, not only is it a love of Hashem, but there includes a component of fear, because we mentioned previously that in order for our mitzvahs to have wings, in order to serve Hashem with full-fledged emotions, there needs to be love and fear. So what is the fear included in this hidden love emotion on the level of a Mesiras Nefesh, at the level of the sphere of Chachma? It is a fear of losing your attachment to Hashem. It's not a repulsion of sin. It's not a fear of punishment, but it's a fear of being separated, losing your attachment to Hashem. And therefore, on this level, a person is ready to have Mesiras Nefesh, to die for the sake of Hashem. And on this level, a person will avoid something even appearing to be a sin. In other words, even something that would be appearing to negate Hashem, even though in truth it does not really negate Hashem. And the famous story that we are told, to put this example into practical terms, is the story of Hannah and her 7 sons. During the story of Hanukkah, she had 7 sons, and they all went one by one. Antiochus, the king, called them and made them bow to him and his idols, and they refused, preferring to die al Kiddush Hashem. When the youngest son came along, Antiochus had some sort of pity on him, and he said, "Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw my ring on the floor, and you just bend down and pick up the ring. You're not bowing down to any idols, and give it to me, but it will appear as if you are bowing down to idols, and I'll spare your life." And even so, the last son refused to do such a thing because it would appear that he is negating Hashem. And on this level, the truth becomes very, very clear for a Jew, and he automatically, it is his nature, it's not a decision, he automatically is willing to sacrifice his life for Hashem. It's not even something that he has to contemplate. It's his hidden love being activated. And we can also use this concept when we learn about it and we think about it to activate our hidden love as well, and therefore avoid sins and do mitzvahs on this level of Mesiras Nefesh, because we are not necessarily required to die for to serve Hashem, but we are required to live and serve Hashem. We are dedicating our will, putting our will aside for the will of Hashem on this level. But this topic does continue for the next few chapters, so we will elaborate further. Any questions or
Okay,
observations?
Hannah.
Yes. Hi, Sina.
Hi, good morning. Just this last part, what you said. So does that mean that um, all of us sitting here would not bend down and pick up that ring because of that of that? Is it like, would we, all of us, not bend down? Each one of us, you don't know us personally, but so you're saying all Jews, would we not bend down and pick up the
We
ring?
all have the possibility not to bend down and pick up
Okay,
the
so
ring.
it's not like
There is still free choice, which is why unfortunately people have succumbed to negating godliness, right? But they are going against their nature. The nature of a Jew is never to negate godliness. And that's why we see many examples of Jews who, notwithstanding all their sins, did not negate godliness. We have examples on both sides of the spectrum. That is our nature. And we get in touch with our nature when things are very clear and things are beyond logic. It's like the example that I gave, like if, you would not necessarily jump out of a window on a normal day, but if there's a fire raging behind you, you would have no problem jumping out the window because it's so clear that that's what has to happen. And at that moment, the activation of the love um, becomes clear and it's not even logical, right? And by the way, some people who are ready to sacrifice their lives for God, and let's say they survived, like let's say the threat was not put into practice, they don't change their lives after that. They may continue sinning, right? Some do change their lives, I'm not saying, but someone who's experienced a miracle or someone who's seen the revealed hand of Hashem will sometimes change their lives and sometimes won't. And the
Mhm.
reason is because this love goes back to sleep. It was awakened momentarily, and then we can't rely on this hidden love always to serve Hashem, which is why Tanya really mainly speaks about the produced love through our intellect. But Alter Rebbe does give us the awareness that we can activate this love. But then we have to develop it. We can't just leave it as it is.
And the development would be in what you just said, in the work of making yourself aware,
Yes,
all
yes.
the steps
In
that.
other words, it's a different kind of a love. It's like, oh, good, we have this hidden love. We love Hashem, right? It's like when a person sometimes has an inspiration to do tshuva, they're not necessarily, they don't know why, right? They're just inspired by something, a mitzvah, a nigun, a story, an experience, right? They're not sure why. That's the hidden love being activated. But if we want to sustain our avodas Hashem, we then have to make that into something that is more logical and bring it down into our logic and reason and understanding and emotions.
I have a couple questions, but first I want to ask, is this part on YouTube? Because I don't want to ask the question. Is it
Oh,
recorded and
oh yes, it is being recorded. You can ask
Yes.
if when I finish the recording,
Okay,
if you
I'll
want, you
ask
can.
then. But I have a second question following up on what Sina asked. You could bend down and get the ring with a different intention and still have Mesiris Nefesh?
No, so in that story, in
Yes.
other words, this is a very interesting example that Alter Rebbe brings. Because sure, you could bend down, pick up a ring, and have no intention to be serving an idol or bowing down to an idol. But the point that the Alter Rebbe is bringing here is that the Mesiris Nefesh goes so far that even if there was a possibility for someone to think that you're negating Hashem, you wouldn't even do that.
Okay, got it.
That's how far our attachment is to Hashem on this level, on this neshama chachma level.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so Andrea, when I'm going to end the thing, sometimes the whole, I don't think it's just the recording that finishes, but it's just the whole session. So if you want to either like put it on the group or private message me or whatever it is, okay? Okay, everybody, have a great month.
Quick
Next week we will,
question.
yeah, sure.
This is like last lesson and this lesson, they seem to be like connecting. What is the like
Well, it is, it's the
timeline?
same topic. It's the same topic. The alter ego is
Right, but
speaking about the same
how
topic.
is it developing? Like, can you just like itemize it? Like last time we spoke.
Itemize.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by atomizing it?
No, like last time we spoke more focused on this. This time we spoke more focused on this. Like it's still talking about connection and.
So last time the Alter Rebbe explained to us where this love's come from, where this love comes from. This parak, the Alter Rebbe is explaining to us the nature of the love, and
Okay.
why there is a component also of fear within this love. It's
Mhm.
just elaborating.
Okay, and the next time is going to be what?
You'll have to wait for next time. And by the way, next week there is no class because I will be away. Ratz Hashem, I'm not going to be in Brazil. I'm going to be overseas, so I won't be able to give a class. So you'll have to wait for the next time.
All right.
But it's a continuation. It's a continuation of it's a continuation and elaboration and makes it more clear. Next chapter.
Right. All right. Spasiba. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, everybody. Have a great week, a great Chodesh, and I'll see you in 2 weeks, not next week. I'll put on the group that there's no class next week. Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.